Welcome to the Feral Mammy podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Feral Mammy podcast. I'm your host, Aoife Lennon, antenatal and hypnobirthing instructor, lactation consultant, and soon to be birth doula. Shh, don't tell my mom. And today I'm talking to Edel Woods. Edel is a pre and postnatal fitness and wellness coach, a mammy of 3 adorable little munchkins, a teacher currently on a career break, so she's a special place in my heart. And her approach is about more than just physical fitness. It is focused as much on that as it is on emotional well-being, confidence, and connection. And she's passionate about helping women to feel strong, supported, and empowered throughout every stage of motherhood. So, Edel, tell me, what did you see happening to women in pregnancy and postpartum that made you say, no, we deserve better than this?
Well, I suppose it's all on your own experience, isn't it? And lived experience. And none of my friends actually had been in this season before I entered it. We were all very much in the still, you only train to get into your wedding dress season, all right? And that was the only reason we moved. But I suppose I started moving for it and started getting an enjoyment of it. And I was following somebody on YouTube and I did her little videos to start up in our bedroom with no weights. It was all just body weight. And I suppose I saw it had a really positive effect on my labour and delivery with Ollie, and that was with no weights involved. Then by the time I was having my second baby, my husband had started talking about opening his own gym, and I suppose weights became a little bit of a talk in our house. And I was like, oh sure, feck it, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I lifted a little bit of weights in my pregnancy, and my recovery was so much more positive physically after having my second than my first. My pelvic floor was so much stronger, and I suppose having 2 little babies, 2 under 2 during COVID, we had a lot of outdoor time. So I was pushing a buggy and I was carrying the balance bike up on my shoulder while having another baby on a hip, and I was like, we deserve to be training for the life that we're living rather than training just to be in a smaller body. So I had an element then of postnatal depression after I had my second baby. And one of the things that myself and my husband talked about was doing something that I really enjoyed, and finding they call it your unicorn space. Now mine was a bit more serious because it's I'd love to learn something that I'm interested in. I love studying, I love learning, I love reading. So yeah, I'm that girl. And I just said, feck it.
Welcome to the nerd group.
Yeah. That's what my brother calls my book club. Oh, the nerd group, you're going there. I said, he's opening a gym. I'd love to actually learn a wee bit more about pre and postnatal care. So I started studying it in the evenings, never with the intention of having it as a job or anything like that, but just more so that after my second baby, I was never having another one. And I was at least I'll be able to help my friends maybe when the time comes along, or give advice out in the gym if Colin has a client or whatever. But yeah, it turned into Bump Buddies and Beyond then. So yeah, so that's why I then said we need to bring this to the masses. I feel really strong, not just in my body, but also in my mind now as well, which is really, really powerful. And we need mommy to be happy and healthy to raise these little babies. So yeah, so important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that this is a joint venture of you and your husband, because so often women's fitness and women's strength kind of comes secondary to a man's in a relationship. I know my husband gets out to the gym and I get out to the garage.
Yeah, but as you say, it is I suppose our client base is probably 80% women, and my husband's he saw me at my lowest and he saw the effect that movement had, and he will actively encourage that. And you know what, I think also having you have kids, I'm it's the only time I'm on my own, Aoife, is when I work out. And I'm in my own headspace. So yeah, and I suppose we just now provide that space for women here, but they bring their babies. But even at the same time, you don't have to worry of who you're leaving the baby with and stuff like that, which is amazing. You know, you can take your baby along. And equally, we have women as well who say, no, I don't want to even have to worry about the baby beside me, and they leave them with somebody else, you know, but there's that space there.
It's as much about the community of women then as
Completely.
it is about the workout.
Completely, and I think this week the women in my classes are absolutely sick hearing me talking about Shane Martin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but I went to a talk of
Yes.
his Tuesday. Oh, Aoife, I went to a talk of his on Tuesday night, right? And I'd seen him before, and I'm a huge advocate that in our classes we are so much more than a workout. I say like 50% workout, 50% everything else. And he just talked about being resilient and how important it is like to keep like positive mental health and stuff like that, but the community is such an important aspect of our like positive mental health space. And I was saying to my women in all the classes this week, come in 5 or 10 minutes early and talk to each other. I know you're tired, right? Talk at the end. And I suppose that's when Bump Buddies and Beyond came about.
Yeah.
For a few of our classes, now I can't do it for every class, but a few of our classes, we stay for tea and coffee after and chats, because we all need connection. And I think especially postpartum, when a woman's in a stress space, her like best like role of response to that is surrounding herself in community generally. All right, so huge advocate of being a community.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. And it's like I say it all the time in terms of, my baby massage classes, my baby sensory classes. Quite often women are not willing to invest in themselves postpartum, but if they feel like it's something that will benefit their babies, then they will invest in it. And I'm always saying, like you bring a 4 month old to one of my classes, absolutely there are benefits for them, but the big benefits are for you, the mother, to get out, to meet other people, to realize that you're not on your own and you don't have to be on your own. Like motherhood is such an isolating place if
Absolutely.
we
And we
don't
live
have that community.
Yeah, we live like in a time now where like the people talk about this village all the time, you know, and I'm like, where is the fucking village? You know, like I'm sitting here today, like talking to you, but all my friends are at work today, you know, and like I have to actively seek to find that village. Similarly, like when people are on maternity leave, it mightn't coincide with their neighbour's maternity leave or their
Yeah.
sister-in-law's maternity leave. So you have to actively seek that, you know, and you might be the sort of person who thinks that they don't even need it, all right? But like I talked about like doing my workouts on my own, like at the start in early motherhood, but I know now like a huge reason I go to Colin's actual like group classes is it mightn't even be for the chatter, but it's the no one like nod, oh yeah, I'm exhausted too. Or another woman will say, oh yeah, the toddler's not sleeping in our house, and you just feel less alone, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. Like I always give the example on my like lane at home, there was 5 houses. 4 out of 5 women were stay-at-home moms, and they like had such great community. They didn't even have to organize play dates, like they were just out on the lane together. And it wasn't just like at 10 o'clock in the morning, they saw each other at lunchtime, and they saw each other in the evening too, you know.
Yeah, and it is. And, like I know when I was growing up, I grew up in a house state, so slightly different, but, you know, everyone had loads of kids, first of all.
Yeah.
And then moms as well. Back in those days, moms either worked part-time or they didn't work. So that kind of sense of community was there. Children kind of half reared themselves, to be honest, sometimes.
Yeah. You do, but you know
But
yourself when there's other kids around the house. I know even today I have like 4 of the kids' pals coming over. I'm really lucky. I can do it on a Friday.
yeah,
I'm off in the afternoons, you know. But I do that because we don't live in an estate. We don't live on a road where there's loads of kids. So I actively have to bring that like village to my house, you know. Carnage, but the best sort of
but it
carnage.
makes it so much easier. It
Completely.
really does. It really
Completely.
does. Adele, going back to, like the postpartum body and things like that. Would you say is the one thing that frustrates you the most about how society talks about women's bodies postpartum?
I suppose we're like my
So many
Instagram
things.
feed, yeah, there's so much on it, but my Instagram feed for a long time now, I know we curated ourselves at what we look at now, but it was this bounce back culture. And even when I went in to have Ollie, I was like hearing these stories of like women coming out in their jeans, all right, like postpartum. I was, what the hell? And it put such a pressure. And it was about this, like, you're going to bounce back, and like, does X, Y, and Z still fit? Are you back at your pre-pregnancy weight? And I just felt like this, like, weight on my shoulders. And I really fed into that on my first baby. I put a lot of pressure on the cosmetic of postpartum, and I was very lucky in our delivery and stuff like that. Like, it was it all went my way, you know, and in a really, really positive light. My physical recovery was very good, but like, it was about getting into my jeans and my flat stomach, and I was like, what is this, you know? Second and third time around, thankfully I was older and wiser and more educated. And I suppose I started looking into more of like the actual recovery of it. How is my pelvic floor feeling? So how is your pelvic floor feeling? Are you strong in your core, or are you actually having to like heave yourself out of the bed in the morning? How are your hips feeling? What, like, we talk about diastasis recti for our ladies who have an abdominal birth or a C-section. Like, nobody talks about C-section massage, or like getting that like scar healing right after baby, because so many women suffer with like tightness in it, and it's really like affects their day-to-day life. Their load, are they able to like lift the laundry basket without weeing themselves, you know, because of that intra-abdominal pressure? How is your nervous system? Nobody told me that like my tolerance was going, my mental tolerance, but also like my stress response was going to change. And then I suppose lastly, like that identity shift and like that word matrescence. Just like when I heard that word for the first time, I was like, hallelujah. There is now a term that is describing all of what I'm after saying: physical, emotional, like mental change in our bodies. Instead of talking about, do your jeans fit? How are you looking? Do you look the same as the woman you were pre-baby?
Funny, you know, when you mentioned matrescence there, someone said to me recently, you know, if we looked at matrescence in the same way that we look at adolescence, we would never expect women to bounce back. You know, we never say to a teenager, okay, you know, great, you know, you've got your period. Now, if you wouldn't mind going back and behaving like the 11-year-old.
This is it. And I do, when I was telling Colin about it the first time, like, even for my husband to have an understanding of what was happening, because I'm sure he looked at me loads of times and was like, whoa, this is not the woman I married, you know. She's like reacting to things differently. But when I likened it to adolescence, I was like, look, if you had met like teenage Edel and she was a bit of an arsehole some days, you know, because of hormones, you better give me allowance for it, you know. And you know that it's not for like ever that I'm going to be hormonal and stuff like that too. So I always liken it to adolescence, and to give people that like reasoning. And I say, like, it's really different every time. You don't just experience it the first time you become a mom. Like, I was a very different woman the second time, and I'm thankfully a very, very different woman third time round, entering into this, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And I swear it's like you are singing my song here. Um, because I'm just, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm going, yeah, 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 yeah. Like, who decided that we should, you know, snap back into our old clothes? That, and really, the person you're doing that for is not yourself. It's for everyone else. And once everyone else sees that, you know, you've gone back to yourself and they're happy with that, like, sorry, that's just not good enough. And, you know, it makes me so angry, you know,
Yeah,
and I would talk an awful lot about that rage that comes with being a mother. And it's the rage that's kind of, it's like a fire that's lit buy matrescence. Perimenopause just throws petrol on it.
Absolutely. I was just thinking in my mind there. I was like, we don't even just hit it in adolescence or matrescence. We have everything still to come as well, you know? And funny, we run a Mind and Mammy program here. So it's an early
Yes,
postpartum, like support, recovery sort of group.
and I
And
love
one
it.
it's fab. All right. I also say it's everything I would have wanted postpartum, you know, and a safe space to talk about everything. But one of our women the other day, she sat in front of me and she felt so. She was saying like she snapped at the husband this week or whatever, and she's a really gentle soul. And I was like, that's postpartum rage, and I like, or an element of it. And I said like, I still experience it sometimes. I'm like, it's a bit like an elastic band. You keep pulling and pulling and pulling, and eventually it's going to snap. So like by her being there and knowing, number one, what's happening, knowing that she hasn't just like lost her mind, you know, that there's a reason for these things happening. And especially like postpartum, I always say like there's a reason that like putting a soldier in a room, dark room with crying sounds of a baby being pumped in is used as a war tactic. Like there's very little of us that would not snap under that.
I wonder, could they repeat that study with an 8-year-old saying, "Mom, mom, 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 mom"? I'd love to see
My
those results.
my band is well and truly pulled. Thankfully, we very much co-parent in this house because we were a tag team in and out of the gym. But like that, I'm even now at the stage where when I hear dad, I'm like, you've said dad like 5 times now in like a row with no response, and then you just automatically change to mom, and I'm about to snap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always say, like, one of my children would pass my husband at at the fridge while he was making a cheese sandwich to come and ask me to cut them some cheese.
Yes,
And you're
I
like,
said, you know what? Actually, as you say that, I always think of like sitting at the kitchen table, you know, and everybody's like digging into their dinner, and it's like, "Mom, can I have a drink?" And for like a few years, I used to like hop up straight away and get whatever they want, right? And now, like within reason. And then I was listening, I love a podcast, all right? And I was listening, and she was like, show your children that it's really important that mommy eats and fuels her body too, okay? And I said, yes, I will get you a drink, but I'm going to have 2 spoons first because I'm really, really hungry. So I like make a point
yeah,
now of like not just like hopping to the like tune all the time.
absolutely. Like, and so much of even this conversation here has nothing to do with fitness, but everything to do with those conversations that
Wellness.
happen in and around us.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Adele, in terms of like fear and doubt, because they are 2 really strong emotions that a lot of women feel in pregnancy and in the postpartum period. And so many women are fearful of movement in pregnancy. Where do you think that fear comes from?
Comes from generations before us. It really does. Like I know in my house when people heard that I was like exercising during pregnancy on my first baby, it was very much like, but you're not allowed to like lift your hands over your head, or you're not allowed to rotate your core was another myth. I was like, I turn all the time in my classroom, okay? Like this, like not lifting things over your head. But I was like, who am I going to call to take those folders down off the shelf when I need to do my monthly plans in my classroom? I was like, whoa. So that was like a real like light bulb moment. I was like, right, yeah. Now I'm not saying like yes, there are women who do burpees and all this stuff during pregnancy, and you do you, but functional fitness, I was like we never like train. I always like in labor and delivery and even the latter stages of pregnancy to a bit like running a marathon. Okay, and I'm like, mentally you have to prepare for that. You have to like mentally like envisage like going over the finish line, run that like whole day through your head time and time again. But you also are about to like do like the strenuous, for some of us we'll be really lucky and we'll go 4, 5, 6, 7 hours and we'll be done and dusted. For others we could be like under endurance for quite maybe a day, maybe a day and a half, 2 days, and we also have to recover after that with a newborn. Alright. So I was like, surely we would not stop like running 6 months before the race or 3 months before the race or even the month before the race. Like women, I have women out in the gym at like 40, 41 weeks, God bless them, you know. And I was like, you are doing amazing, but we change it up. A woman's body is adaptable, okay? And I think for a long time, like pregnancy was thought of as like not a disease, but like something like that had to be like,
An illness.
controlled.
Yeah.
And now, don't get me wrong. Again, there are women out there who will like suffer, really, really suffer during pregnancy. And I know, like week like 7 to 14, I could never train in pregnancy. I might walk down to the end of the road and back. But then I slowly came to, by week 17, I was usually good to go. And then I all started adapting once I hit that like third trimester again, starting to slow down, but still moving, because I still wanted to be able to sit down on a chair and get up again. That's a squat. I wanted to be able to use the toilet. That's a squat,
Yeah.
little things like that. My lunges, that's walking up and down the stairs. And actually, a woman finished with me yesterday after she's heading back to work. She finished up
I
after,
know her.
no way,
Yeah.
and she finished up like a year and a half, and she was like, Edel, you were the first person that said, like, you welcomed me into the gym with my bump, first of all, because she was like, loads of men saw me in a gym and like wanted to like push me away. But she was like, you welcomed me in and you showed me what to do, and I felt so safe, and that is what it is. It's to feel safe. And like, I did it on my own, say, but I really would have liked somebody encouraging me along and saying, yes, you're pregnant, but you're not sick, and even like that functional fitness of like being able to like walk out of the hospital, hopefully in some like proper shape or form, or maybe even that you can walk up to your bed comfortably that night when you get home, and in a week's time you can carry your car seat, or even now, like when the 8-year-old's sick, to be able to lift him from the sofa up to his bed. It's functional.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's probably the one myth that like really rings true when I think of pregnancy in particular.
Women are so strong, and I don't think we give them enough credit for that.
We don't.
You're
And
like,
as you,
that myth is just perpetuated generation after generation that women are weak. And
it
we use
really is.
phrases like, oh, grow a pair of balls. And I'm like, no, grow a pair of fallopian tubes.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, we like lift our like I hate to be really stereotypical about it here, right? But it generally is me lifting the laundry basket, all right. And
I've moved mountains today, mountains
and
of
I love
laundry.
to be able to double load that laundry basket and lift it up, a lazy man's load. Or like I say to like women as well, like sometimes they'll come in and they'll like grab the ones and the twos of the weights. And granted, now I always say as well that it's really important to like check in with that like battery in your body each day, right? And if you come in and all you have is 30% on like that like battery kind of, then that's all you can give on a day. Okay, sound. But on the days that you have that like you feel buzzy, you have a little bit of energy, to say like they're like afraid of lifting the heavier weights. And then when I turn it and say like, did you lift your the chassis of your buggy into the boot this morning? I'm like, that's 12 and a half, 13 kilos. You're more than fit, to lift a little bit heavier. And then like this, you start like slowly seeing this confidence come, because I was guilty of like, they're pumping ones and twos. And I like long before Colin did training, I had gone to like PT then, and he was like, Edel, what are you at? And I said, but this is what the lady on YouTube does, and she looks great. Where hadn't heard anything about progressive overload or training for an actual functional fit body.
Absolutely. And do you know what, Edel? It's so lovely to hear you talk about the change that you see in other women. And it's not that they're able to get into their jeans. It's
No,
everything else. It's they've reconnected with themselves, with who they are now, who they have become in
and
motherhood.
they trust their bodies again and become a different sort of confident. Like I know, like it used to be like, oh, I feel confident when I look in the mirror and I don't see a bump, or like not, I don't mean
Yeah.
like a belly, not a bump. But like they're saying now, like I feel so confident because I feel strong, not just physically, but I'm mentally strong. I'm mentally resilient. I like there's so many positives. Like they're like life is just easier, And like as the babies grow, and I'm looking down on the ground here because I'm like, even that like function of like maybe sitting on the ground playing with the blocks with your toddler. and been able to get up off the ground without huffing and puffing. I can see my treadmill out, or not my treadmill, my trampoline. I can see my treadmill too, but the trampoline out the window. And to know that when like the toddler says, will you hop on and jump with me? That I'm not thinking, oh my God, I have to run and get a pad. Or worst of all, no, moms don't bounce. Moms don't bounce, because like that's the narrative. Like I always say to my women, like your core and your pelvic floor are so important. All right, the like main reason a woman ends up in a nursing home when she's old is incontinence. She can no longer go to the toilet or control her own bladder, like getting up and down off a toilet herself. Like I know, like they've made like incontinence knickers nice, Aoife. You know, they've made them look
I know.
you know, and I'm like, can we like go back to the baseline here? Can we
Yeah.
like get women to like look after themselves and not accept that when they sneeze or they cough or they run or they bounce, that leaking is part of everyday life just because we've had babies. And I think our moms and our grannies generation live with that unless they're very proactive. And even women of like our stage live with that. So it's even changing
Really
that
do.
narrative. And it's the first thing I say to women when they come into me. I'm like, if you haven't, I'll always encourage before they like join to like go see a pelvic health physio. But if they haven't, when they come, we go through like all those red flags, you know, seeing if there's any of those like pelvic floor symptoms, any dragging, heaviness, pain during intercourse, pain going to the toilet. Like even hip and lower back pain can be a symptom of that. And of course there are like exercise can do so much, especially strength-based exercises and a lot of that like Pilates-based stuff as well. But sometimes we need that internal, all right, and we need somebody to say, this is your program. Like I always go back to like the men especially who get, like I hear about these husbands getting like their like knees done and stuff. They come out with like 6 week to 8 week rehabilitation plans. We're given our baby and sent on our merry way, unless, and it's always she who shouts the loudest gets seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this this whole area of women's health, like we know it's so under resourced. What did I read this morning? Um, that there are more studies in the, I need to get this right now, but basically it was there are more studies into the consumption of sperm to prevent preeclampsia than there are in, and now I can't remember what the other thing was, but it was something to do with
Yeah,
women and
but it was
childbirth.
even
And I'm like,
showing.
who's benefiting from the blowjob here? Because it sure as hell isn't that woman with preeclampsia.
Oh my God, this is hilarious, hilarious. Oh, Aoife, like it's just, it's fucking dire. Like there's no doubt about it. I do think now, I'm not sure if you've seen in Carrick Cross that they now have like they had a postpartum physio come like as like a little like wellness postpartum hub in Carrick from the MLU in Drogheda, and I was like, yes, this is like a tiny step, but it was like a one-off. Now I'm sure they will probably roll them out like during the year as well, and like it's amazing seeing those little steps. But as you say, it's under resourced, and I'll always say our midwives are like we are really well looked after in pregnancy, and if you need it and you actively seek it, you can be well looked after postpartum as well. But oftentimes we have to seek it ourselves too. But hopefully step by step, and it has been talked about more about in the Doyle and stuff like that too, advocating for better postnatal care in particular, because I say like we're really well looked after in pregnancy here in Ireland, like with our doctor's appointments and getting in and out to see like consultants and midwives and stuff like that. But it's just like very much like, right, see you now after you have them.
Yeah, and unfortunately that is, the story for most women. But I do think we are on the cusp of some change, and even a little change, could have such far-reaching benefits. And I know that even in terms of fitness and strength, that the guidelines for fitness and strength, while I would say there's still a long way to go with them, at least there are some now. you know,
Yes, like they're saying like
that,
150
you know,
minutes of moderate activity in a week. So like that's equating to like your like kind of 30 minutes 5 days a week at least. I'm just a big advocate for like moving every day in some shape or form anyway, because I kind of thought like, oh, if I do strength today, I don't need to go for a walk, you know, but I'm not thinking of like the benefits of like fresh air and vitamin D, well, vitamin D, but you know, like getting that like early morning sunlight or whatever. But like I kind of say to my women like 2 or 3 strength sessions a week, maybe throw in a little bit of Pilates in there, couple of walks, but I will always start with strength training because we're not just thinking of pregnancy, postpartum. We're thinking perimenopause, menopause. I'm constantly thinking of old lady Edel, all right? And
yeah,
like, what can I do now to make her life easier? You know, as she ages. And I suppose, like, I love the phrase, like, what woman do you want to be? Like, right? And I'm like, I'm now at a stage where I'm like, I'm just a woman who moves her body every day. Even on a rest day, I go for a walk. And it doesn't have to be like anything crazy either. You know, like I obviously love supported workouts, I love community workouts, but just any sort of movement, you know, that you enjoy. And when you get past introducing movement, then get those weights going. Get that strength.
yeah,
Okay. And then add your
because
cardio.
it's so important. It becomes more important. Then again, like I just think of myself, my perimenopause, my bone strength, you know, all of those years that I spent, you know, starving myself and not putting milk in my tea,
I know,
you know,
we're
so
crazy.
exercise is so important, you know, that I feel like I'm like, it's not just enough even now to be your future friend. You need to be your past friend as well.
Yes, yeah, we've a lot to undo, like that kind of diet culture and stuff like that as well. And I suppose to like my women, I'm like strength train, get that protein in and get some rest or sleep. Rest or sleep. Like I know early postpartum is really, really hard, but I'll still be like advocating to my women all the time, like don't let yourself come to the point of depletion, which is what I did on my first and my second, where like third time round I was like, no, I need to protect the captain of the ship and then the ship sails well. You know, everybody else is happy around me.
Oh, Adele, this conversation has just been so refreshing. And I loved how you have like little, is metaphors or similes, I don't
Oh,
know.
they're like
English
little
wasn't really my
mantras.
subject. That, you know, like captain the ship and all that. I love all of those. Um, so, Adele, what would you leave today with our listeners to a woman who is maybe considering becoming pregnant or is already pregnant and maybe coming at this from a point of they haven't done much exercise before now?
Well, like again, another myth that was all, like told to us all the time was don't start anything new in pregnancy. Don't start anything new. And I'm like, no, that's awful advice. That's awful advice. Okay. Now, obviously, you're not going to start like training for a high rocks. Okay. I think anybody doing that is mad anyway. But I would say, like, you absolutely start. Okay. Don't be afraid. And don't be afraid, but go get support. All right. So I'm like, when you need like help with like a broken arm, you go to get looked about by a nurse. Okay. So when you need like help with your fitness and wellness, you go to a pre or postnatal coach who is able to guide you. I will often say as well, go to, I don't want to be sexist about it, but like go to somebody who's been through it. You know, like I see these videos pop up on my Instagram all the time that everybody has the same 24 hours.
No, we don't. No,
No. Have you been up all night?
same
You know?
24 hours.
Yeah, and I'm like, and obviously, like, look, you can be a great coach and not have gone through these things. I will say that, okay? But the lived experience is really, really important. So, like, when women come into me some days and I can see that she's on the floor exhausted, I'm like, what is that baby like growing in there? Like, that she's so exhausted at the minute. But I'd say like, right, let's like adjust today. Let's have you like moving for like energy, because I always say like moving creates energy. Motion also moves emotion. On those like days where maybe she could like cry at the drop of a hat, we all know those like hormonal days, then like moving is going to be really good for that. So meet somebody who meets you where you're at, isn't just like ramming whatever workout they had planned down your throat, okay, that they can adjust to you. We talk like even like you do pregnancy classes as well. We talk so much about that upright forward delivery. You know, so we need these muscles in our legs and our bums to be good and strong. I know, like, I didn't lie on my back for any of my births, okay? But I could feel my legs fatigue. I got tired, you know? So by having like strong muscles, like how much more tired would I have been? Would I have ended up like maybe having to go for a C-section because I got too tired? If I hadn't have strength trained, I don't know, maybe not. You know, so I'd say start, feel supported, get outside for those walks. We're aiming for 150 minutes in a week, all right? Yes, that could be like five 30-minute walks, or say 7 20-minute walks or whatever, but getting that core and pelvic floor working and getting to know it as well before you have your baby, keeping your tummy muscles strong so that you have more of a chance of like them coming back together again post baby as well.
Oh, Edel, that's just been fantastic. And where can our listeners find you?
So we
On
are
Instagram?
we're based in County Monaghan. We are halfway between Macross and Castle, just beside McCahey shop. And I am on Bump Buddies and Beyond on Instagram. And yeah, you'll find me there. And my husband's gym is called Beef Brownfield. So that's where we base everything.
So any of the mummies to be, or even the dads,
Anybody at all. Grannies,
anybody
aunties.
at all.
Yes, we would love to have you. And as I always say, like, we meet you where you're at. No fitness level required, no prerequisites, and hopefully that you leave us happier and healthier than you landed.
Thank you so much, Edel.
Oh, no, thank you for asking.
So if you loved this episode, send it on to all of your friends in their group chats. You know the one, or if you're like me, the ones. And hit follow so you don't miss next week's episode. Leave a review if you're feeling generous. It helps this little feral corner of the internet grow. And if anything we mentioned today made you feel a little bit heavy, tender, or uncomfortable, remember you're not broken, you're responding. Motherhood is wild, and you are absolutely allowed to be wild in it. Thank you, Edel. That has been amazing.
My pleasure.
And yeah, you never know, we might have you on again soon.
Fab. Thank you so much.
Take care.